understanding the future. I don't think we should live in the future. I think let me just tie this up, and then I want to hear what both of you have to say. By number one, I think it's a step by step process, at least the way I see it. Um, Getting over the past in the sense of taking what I need, what's important to me to move forward, not allowing myself to get bogged down by old negative pains or whatever it is that's going to hold me down, removing and releasing those things that no longer are serving me, and taking and holding on to things that I could learn from and grow from. The next step is really living in the here and now, and being grounded, being present, being in the moment. And I am living to a certain degree, um, for the future because I'm building a future. However, I think it's more about understanding the future through living in the here and now. And what Baruch was saying earlier, that I said a lot of nows, is that the past is a now that has passed. It's gone. It was a now in the moment at some period, but then it's gone. It's in the past. The future is a now that hasn't yet happened. And right now is a now that is happening right now. And it's the only thing that's really consistent, because the now that happened a few seconds ago is in the past, and the now that's going to happen in a few seconds from now is the future. But the only thing that's happening is the immediate now. So to me, at least, and I would love to hear both of your inputs. Um, to me, at least, I'm living my now at the best now that it could be, in a sense that I want this now to grow. Like my next now that's like the next now that's coming is going to grow, only enhancing the current now. And it's only going to sort of like, I want to create a snowball effect, a momentum, if you will, that my now in the future would be a great now. So, Mindy, what are your thoughts about that?
Ooh. Let me just breathe for a moment. Goodness.
Right?
That was really deep, Jeremy. Well, and I do agree with you that I think that, as soon as I say this word, the next word that I say is the future. And so we don't often think about that. We think of the future as something that's far off.
Right.
It could be next week, it could be next year, it could be the vacation that we're planning in 2 years, it could be the house that we want to buy in 5 years, it could be
Right.
all of these things. But I think that when we connect it back to what we're doing now, it's the intention that we live, and
Yeah.
so with that, then we're taking steps, we're planting the seeds for what our future is. And so just like Jen had said, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
therefore, if we're wanting to make changes in the future for that some far off date, it depends on what we're doing right now.
Mm.
So it's like, how
Wow.
are we taking care of ourselves? How are we thinking about things? And I saw a quote, and I didn't write it down, so I'm going to try my best to share this. But it said, so often we're trying to be a good descendant when really we need to think about being a good ancestor.
Oh yeah.
And
Mm.
so I
Yeah.
heard that, and I was like, oh my goodness! It was like, it just hit me
Yeah.
that the things that we're doing now, we're creating our own legacy for future generations. So what we're doing
Absolutely.
right now matters.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. A lot of this is all reminding me of, I don't know how many of you have, how many, either of you or how many of our audience has watched The Lord of the Rings, but
Mm-hmm.
this character Bilbo Baggins, right? He's got this line at the party, and it's great. He says this thing about this and that, and everybody just looks at him like you fell off of planet Mars. But like I feel like that's what's going on here. Is like the now is the future now is a now, which brings me, of course, to Gandalf, his line, which is that a wizard is never late, nor is he ever early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I can understand the future. I think the only way I can understand the future is when the future is the present, and I've been able to look back at the past to see how the past affected the future. I mean, I agree with what both of you are saying. It's how we live now affects our future, and in my mind, how do we try to understand the future? I don't like. You can try to plan for the future. You can try to set things up so that the future looks good and is good. And that's like we were talking about, like the habits that we're implementing and the skills that we're building now and the way we're training ourselves and the way we're training our kids. And I love what you said about, instead of being a good descendant, be a good, I don't know if you said ancestor,
Mm.
but be a good, like that is extremely powerful, because at the end of the day, like we can't affect the past, but we can affect the future. But I don't know if there's a way to understand it.
Mm.
Maybe it's understanding what needs to be done for the future. I don't know.
Well, I would challenge and I would say
Yeah, please.
that one good act that you do today could lead to another good act that you're going to do tomorrow.
Right.
One act of kindness that you do today has some kind of perpetual effect to the future. Vice versa is also true. If you're doing something negative today, that could have a negative effect in the future. Um, and it really boils down to deciding what is it that you want to do. I like to put most of my energy in the positive,
Mm-hmm.
so that I'm always in this perpetual positive,
Right.
you know, cycle, if you will. And so for me, and I really relate to what Mindy was saying about that being that good ancestor, and we're always so busy being this great, descendant. I had some really heavy hitters as grandparents. Like they were like woof people, and we always grew up in this shadow of their greatness. You should be like them, or you should make them proud, and whatever. I agree to a certain degree. I want to be a good descendant in the way that I'm also a good ancestor. I think they go hand in hand together. I want my grandkids to look up at me and say, "Now that's something I want to follow." You hear a lot. I talk about a grandfather of mine, who's actually my great grandfather, my grandmother's father, and he was like the patriarch of the family. And a lot of my things that I believe in and that I am comes from this grandfather of mine. And I often speak about his quotes, but I'm living those quotes for my kids, for my future, because of how inspired I am by this ancestor of mine. So I want to be that ancestor for my children as well. And so that to me is understanding the future, is by taking the good lessons of the past, implementing them currently in the present, and perpetually, hopefully that they're going to be perpetual for the future. So all my actions that I'm taking today are things that are going to be in some kind of creating a cycle, creating this snowball, for the future.
So I would add two words. Sorry, I'm
No,
just gonna
please
really
go
quickly.
ahead.
Then let's get back to you. I would add two words to that. Then instead of understanding the future, it's understanding the potential of the future. I don't know. That
Mm.
to me makes a little more sense. But Mindy, go ahead, please.
And I apologize to you. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you. I
you're the
just was so
guest.
excited. I was like, ooh.
No, it's
Um,
great. It's a great conversation.
I think that, and I agree with you, because I think it is about it's the potential for the future, and that's what we're doing right now. Is we're creating, we're putting out there opportunities. The possibilities are endless, and that's really why it's important to look at what we're doing now. And I think that sometimes we recognize what has happened in a future time when it becomes the present or the past, as time
Hmm.
flows, by reflection. Reflection is so
Right.
powerful,
Right.
because then we can see, you know, some things that when we're in the midst of it that we weren't able to and so it's looking back on things, and we can see how things were connected, how maybe something didn't work out that we thought what we thought was a failure in the moment pointed us to something different. So I think that, and Jen actually talks about this quite a bit, that the that everything in life is working for her, not against her. And I
Right.
agree with that. And it's, when you think about that way, it's really powerful that any decision that we're making, you know um, is moving us forward into that future.
I just want to highlight one thing that Margaret was saying, actually, and thank you, Margaret, for joining. And it's really that the only thing that's in our power is the current now and what we make out of the now. Obviously, learning from the past, and the potential of the future and all these things, but we are powerless over the past at this point. We are powerless over the future. For the most part, we are powerless of what's happening in the current moment, but we have the power to do the best of whatever we have now. And
Well, you had mentioned something too that really struck me, and it was that, so often we are in reactionary mode rather than being responsive. And so I think that that's where, sometimes we hear there's a power in the pause. And that's really being able, going back to grounding
Yeah.
ourselves, to recognize that maybe we're frantically running through the supermarket, or, for me, it's like I'm telling my kids to hustle, 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 and just stopping for a moment, and it's breathing, it's grounding ourselves, recognizing what we want, and that moves us from reaction to responsive. And I
Hmm.
think that when we look at that in the context of past, present, future, it's creating more intention, being more consciously aware of where we are now.
Love
So
that. Yeah.
anyway, thank you.
Wow.